So we're here tonight with Anderson Langdon of Barbados Family Planning Association. Thank you, Anderson, for joining us. Right there, I think we're on both sides now. Yes. So Anderson is the executive director of the Barbados Family Planning Association. He has been with them for over 2 decades, I think. And in last year, they opened their state-of-the-art community health center for value to more than $5 million US or Bajan dollars. Which one it is, Anderson? And he also introduced the value-based appraisal system, which led to record-breaking services and revenue. And he was honored by the Lionel Foundation as Leader of the Month in 2022. All right, so we talked about your amazing work at Family Planning, opening the state-of-the-art community center last year, and also introducing the value-based appraisal system, which led to record-breaking services and revenue. And that you've been honored by the Clara Lionel Foundation in 2022 as Leader of the Month, and that you have a wonderful life partner and teammate, Vanessa, and a wonderful son, Aidan. And you're an avid sports fan, Manchester United and West Indies cricket. Thank you so much, Anderson, for joining us here tonight.
Yes.
And before we dive into the hard stuff, we want to get to know you just a little bit better. Right? What would you rather? Limited internet access or unreliable transportation?
Well, I can't live without either. So I'm not going to make a choice there.
I had about a month without internet last year, and that was frustration. But I'm pretty sure unreliable transportation will drive me even more crazy because at least I can work from home, but like no transport, yeah, that's a bit harder. Would you prefer to learn how to master mixology or pottery? I'm seeing that you're talking, but we're not hearing you. Sorry.
Well, I've been known for mixing to my own drinks. Definitely not pottery. I will let how that would turn out.
Okay, yeah. I think I'll go with the mixology as well. And for a social development question, would you rather to focus on waste reduction or to promote sustainable agriculture?
I think they go hand in hand. I think if you could manage waste reduction and can use some of the right products for the waste, you can invest in sustainable agriculture. I think waste, some of the waste we can help bring some of the nutrients in waste back into soil. So I think they go hand in hand, actually.
Yeah, I could see that logic of them going hand in hand. But I think I'm going to go with sustainable agriculture if I had to pick one, because there's definitely a need to figure out how to have smart agriculture with the climate change and all these things that we're facing. So, and food insecurity is a real issue for the Caribbean region. So that's why I would choose sustainable agriculture. Yeah. All right. So let's jump right in and explaining what this concept is. So I'm going to let you take the floor to explain what a social enterprise is and how it differs from traditional business or a non-profit organization.
I lost you a bit there, Carrie.
I was asking you to explain what is a social enterprise and how it differs from a traditional business or a nonprofit.
Sure. So here, I'm going to tell you 6 characteristics that I think differentiate a social enterprise from regular businesses. Well, the first one is that there's the social mission. The idea is really for a social enterprise to focus on generation so that it can reinvest the profit into the social mission. The operations are sustainable. There's increased efficiency and sustainability, and there's a lot of innovation because most people who engage in social enterprises who are looking for social mission have to be innovative in what they choose as a social enterprise or what they do to be competitive so that they can have social impact. And the fifth one, and there were 5, sorry. The fifth would be accountability and transparency, because most of the organizations who engage in social enterprise are organizations who are looking for credibility and doing social good and having impact. And for example, for us, we've been 70 years, and it's okay to say 70 years, but for 70 years, we've had audited financial statements of our funding. We've had accountability reporting to our funders and reporting to other partners. And that is one of the 5, those are the 5 main things when you look for social enterprise.
Okay. And what role do you see social enterprise playing in the Caribbean? Because it's still relatively new. Yes, we had some of our stalwarts, such as Spear from Belize, trying it and whatnot, but it seems to now be taking root, and organizations are able to actually function as a social enterprise. In the region, I know of Def Can Coffee in Jamaica, Families in Action in Trinidad, and then in Barbados, Donation Nation and Family Planning and Pinelands. So tell me, what role do you see these organizations who are saying we are nonprofit, but we're not a regular nonprofit. We want to make some profit with this while doing a social mission.
Right. So here what it is. So let me take a step back. I think the quickness is really understanding what is a social enterprise. There are many organizations in the Caribbean who do social enterprises and social enterprise things. I think one of the things that is that I think we have to invest in the knowledge, the information out there of what is a social enterprise, because many organizations are already engaged in a form of social enterprise. It is really to understand the different types of models and then bring the business, the other elements and the other, but what it does, one of the things that it does bring economic development. A lot of NGOs bring jobs too. A lot of them are focused on local enterprise and local economies versus we have a staff. We provide social and community impact. I think that is where NGOs in the Caribbean are going to do the most good, because there are things that governments can't do, whether it be limited resources, whether it be different groups, or even can't even identify some of the groups that might be in need or need a social impact, because not everybody wears their vulnerability on their sleeves.
Yeah.
They're also look for more sustainable and economic ways to do what they have to do. And there's a lot of innovation on social entrepreneurship. I know the Caribbean Policy Development Center and other international agencies and regional agencies have done significant investment in small agrarian agricultural programs across the Caribbean.
Yes.
And that is an example. Yes. Many of them, and many of them leverage that impact for social good, helping the people who are in need, but also rearing food and dealing with food security. And one of the things that is resilience and adaptation. Most NGOs and most organizations in the Caribbean that are long-standing organizations, and most of them have done things to be sustainable, whether it be, for example, churches or church groups who's doing a social enterprise act by some cake sales or bake sales or car watches. They are engaging in social enterprise, and that's innovative. Depending on some of the things they do, whether it be the tea parties, or those are an example of doing things, making money, and investing. And they're innovative. A lot of innovative ideas. But for me, one of the things that is very important is resilience and adaptation. I find what happens is that because most of the NGOs or most of the organizations which engage in social enterprise, they're malleable. They've been around for a couple of years, and in most cases, as in 70. And they adapt to the changing times, the difficult situations, the good situations. They're able to roll with the punches. And what about disaster preparedness? One of the things that look at the Red Cross, look at the Barbados Association of to end homelessness, Alliance to End Homelessness. Look at ourselves. Look at the Cancer Society. Look at all those organizations. Look at Diabetes Foundation. You will see that because of the need, they know that the need is needed much in good times. In bad times, the needs for NGOs are even more important. And therefore, a lot of them have sustainability and adaptability, resilient methods to deal with natural disasters, response to the needs of people who are being in challenging situations. And therefore, that's part of inherent in them. And we're inclusive growth. More of us target marginalized groups and underserved areas and help reduce economic and social inequalities by promoting growth, economic, social, and otherwise, that includes everybody. And for us, one of the things that we do is we provide access to services. What we've been able to do is provide access to healthcare and also make that into a social enterprise, because we look to be at a lower possible cost, and therefore we have that impact.
So tell me a bit about that. Like, how does family planning? What makes family planning model a social enterprise model, and how does it benefit from it?
Well, I think you're going to answer. I think. Let me say, I'm going to be straight with it. If you're not engaging in a level of social enterprise at this point as an NGO, you are going to be severely threatened. You're going to be severely threatened by the challenges that we're all facing. Reduce funding from government, reduce funding from local and international donors. So therefore, that would have been the base for many NGOs in the past. And we see as Barbados has moved into middle and high income developing country, and many people don't pay attention to the Bridgetown agreement that the Prime Minister speaks about. But that also impacts us. Yes, that significantly impacts. That speaks to the fact that we are being considered, high developed country, but we still have so many inequalities. We have so many vulnerabilities. So the reality is, we have to look at ways that first, how we can serve the people that we want to serve, have the impact, and at the same time, the economic is sustainable. The truth is, I don't think that the BFPA has created a new model from what had extended prior. What I think is that what has happened with time, we understand the importance of utilizing business acumen, business skills into the NGO space, making the organizations more business-like, more accountable, utilizing social marketing, commercial marketing for its goods and services, but using business elements to enhance its impact and enhance its sustainability. We're not looking for profit, so therefore we focus more on how could we provide the best possible service at the lowest possible cost. And of course, if we are successful in that, we're going to have impact across more people. And if we have that impact on more people, we're going to get more revenue. And what that more revenue goes, we reinvest that revenue into more programs to have more impact. And that is essentially the model that the BFPA has. And that is one of the models that people really look to do in social enterprise. There's so many models. I'm not going to go through all, but there's
there's
models.
The three.
There's
the model of
there are about 11 that
as a standard non-profit.
Yeah.
And then there's
but what we are when we consider a
non-profit organization. Sorry.
Yeah. No problem. There's social firms, there are fair trade organizations, microfinance institutions, benefit corporation, hybrid organization, community development corporations, environmental enterprises, social purpose businesses. But we would be considered more of a nonprofit organization with income generating activities. What are these are traditional nonprofits that generate a portion of their income through business activities such as good as our services to support their social missions. And that one is very important because I think we're going to speak about some challenges. I mean, we do speak about some challenges. There's one big one that is a challenge for me with social entrepreneurship, and it's something that we need to be aware of if we're really keeping on our missions to have social impact. So yes. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about the models that you touched on just now. So you have the standard nonprofit NGO model where we look for donations. We have our fundraising events, and that's our resource engine. Then you have the other model where you have an organization that does depend on some donations, but they have a complete corporate arm separate to what they're doing that tries to make business for them, right? And then you have the others where the business is the social good. So like Deaf Can Coffee, that's their work. They do have some training and some other stuff, but the entire business and non-profit is tied into their system. And then the final model, which sounds a bit like what you were talking about, is where we have the model where you're doing good and you're making sure that your beneficiaries can access your goods by having a lower cost than the general cost that's on the market. And and from whatever money you make from those who could pay, you reinvest that into the organization again so that it can continue to do good.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But I think.
What would you?
Sorry.
What would you say are the challenges that face for social enterprise? So when I first learned about it, I would say I was against it because I think, one, nonprofit workers are overworked. So why are you asking me to sell something on the side too? And then secondly, when you try to have something that's completely different from your main mission, it calls for like a duality and it's not always easy to balance. And then thirdly, I work for passion. And most NGO workers work for passion. So how are you going to get them to actually sell something and collect that money and not give away to everybody who has a sad story? So those are the things that when I think about social enterprise, I'm like, I'm not sure this could work. For you who are doing it and living it, what would you say are the challenges that social enterprise face?
So I think there's some things that must be put in place must be existing before. I think you need to be a good NGO at your core first. I think
you have to explain that for me before you move on.
I think you must have the right structures in place. I think you must have the right governance model. I think you must have the right staff model. I think you should have the right professionals on your team, the right staff support, all of who buy into the mission and the vision and the core values of the organization and who share the same passion, but have different roles to play. You see, the board provides direct oversight over the financial and the data and the overall operations of the organization. The executive director and CEO and his management team and his staff get on with delivering the mission. Focus on delivering the mission.
So
You
now you
see,
have canceled out so many nonprofits in the Caribbean where there's only 3 people.
report. But I'm gonna say that's the point. The point is that I'm not gonna focus on numbers. I'm gonna focus on
Mhm.
structures.
Okay.
Um, I think the idea of good governance, operations that does its job, and keeping for the social mission are the 3 elements that are important with the NGO. The biggest challenge, I think, for me is mission drift. I think is, and here's what happens, and NGOs get caught up in surviving, growing, and accomplishing mission, and trying to find that perfect balance and that's really, and the hard part is finding that perfect balance. We are getting enough funding, you are delivering on your mission, and you're having impact. And I think that's what NGOs should strive for. You spoke about the other concerns. When you start to gain revenue, start to have impact. But BFPA has been lucky for 70 years, 69 years, that we've had a good core structure in place of all of that. So it's been a bit easier to transition more into the social enterprise aspects because that's existed long before in terms of governance, in terms of structures, in terms of, what should I say, aspects of protocol, aspects of, being part of the BFPA. So
Mhm.
that has been a good thing. But what the other core elements, you have to have the right staff. You have to have the right people doing the right things, in the right spaces. You have to have the right professionals. You have to have the right people on your board. You have to have the right membership. You also have to start having the right staff, and you have to have the right leadership, and you have to have also the space which allows everybody to do their job to have the perfect outcomes. And I think for me, those are the things that, they're weaknesses. But I said it, like I said to you, if you're a good NGO and you have these things in place, then it allows that to happen a bit easier. Um, and for me, sorry, for me, that is something that we need to pay attention to when it comes to social enterprise. Just give me a minute. Yeah, but here's some additional challenges, and this is
Uh-huh.
when you move from that aspect of, being an NGO, and getting a social enterprise. You don't want to grow funding and financial sustainability. The
Uh-huh.
reality is, it is still new. The concept is still new. We've seen a proliferation of it in the world and across the world. Luckily, because of, our international, connections, our historical and otherwise, and the regional ones, we are able to tap in to, the concepts. But accessing financing for NGOs is going to be a problem, because the rest of the world, Barbados is certainly not there yet. I think it takes good NGOs to create the confidence in NGOs to really do that, and that's why organizations like the BFPA are important.
Mhm.
Um, um, Not only should we be securing funding for our aim, but we also have to secure funding to help. How do we help our partners? That is something that we've always done. A lot of our projects and a lot of our, programming, we write with partners in mind, having them involved as well, because we need to balance that. Scalability, it's great to have a great idea, but what happens when it starts to work and you have to scale up that social enterprise to keep with the demand? Have we thought that far, or are we just doing things because it's a new up? The other thing is measuring impact. Too many NGOs do a lot, but don't measure what they do. Okay, and that's important for social enterprise. You have to show what you're doing, not just what you're making, but how are you impacting the people that come to you daily? How many people are being impacted? What are their outcomes? How has what
Mhm.
you've been doing impact that? And you also need, yes, for financial and other reporting, but you have to make sure that your partners, your stakeholders value the social mission, value the impact that you're engaging in, and you have to be accountable. So yes, we are accountable to our board. We produce reports. We're accountable to the government. We produce reports. But when we're going to get back to where we do a public session, every year. We have, we're dealing with it during COVID. We hope to be back there soon. But those are accountabilities. If people come to you, ask questions, you respond to them. Market competition. Now, the aim of a social enterprise is to have social impact. One of the things we must be conscious of is that we would love to make all the revenue in the world. We are not there. That's not what we're there for. And we would have natural competitors. You will have natural competitors, and there's market competition. And so as we face competition from traditional business that do not have the added costs associated with achieving social objectives. Because we are socially minded, again, we are focused on having impact versus the business model. And we will not make every decision based on business outcomes, based on profitability. We want to help as much people as we can. So therefore, that itself can become a challenge. But it depends. If you're balancing your mission, and your mission is at the utmost priority, and you're doing that, you're paying your bills, you're paying your staff, you're creating the right working environment, then there's not much more you want but to reinvest in more programming. Capacity and expertise. I start with you on that. Let me say I'm blessed to work at an organization since I've been there that has a unique blend of skills and expertise at the board, management, and the staffing level, general staffing level, who add their own expertise. And that is the difference. That is what, for me, is very important. And that this shout out goes to the rest of my team, goes to the board, goes to the staff, goes to the general membership, that, the BFPA wouldn't be where it is today if not for those who are there now, and those who have come before, and those who are yet to come. Regulatory and policy environment. You have to build the right structure in the legal environment. You have to know where you're working. You have to look at where government is. You have to engage with governments. What makes Caribbean NGOs unique? I think what makes Barbados unique is the amount of governmental engagement that NGOs in Barbados have. That is unique. And I it's not always the day we want it to be. I'm not gonna say that.
I was thinking that too. Yeah, they engage, but do they actually follow up?
Yeah, but also that's also dependent on the NGO's capacity as well. But these are things that we need to keep in mind. But I've mentioned mission drift as sustainability over and over again. Yeah. Community engagement, gaining trust and support from your partners. One of the good things about being an enterprise is that you already are engaging with people through your services. So therefore, you're indirectly doing community engagement, and you're supporting the community at the same time. That's the advantage of the NGO, but you have to get the balance right. Innovation and adaptability. Like we said before, and the problem is I don't think that they just don't want to be innovative. I think some of them are afraid to be innovative. Some of them are afraid to step out the norm. But to survive in this environment, it can't be business as usual. And you have to continuously look not only at the social needs, but addressing the social needs. Now, for example, we would have had about many people think of Barbados family planning still as it relates to family planning. That's why we try to use the term BFPA, because we're more than family planning. We have antenatal clinic. We have clinic to have more impact. We have a surgical rental. You have to adapt to the changing needs. So therefore, when people make certain statements that family planning, we offer antenatal and obstetric and gynecological clinic, because family planning can do many things. Sexual and reproductive health and rights can do many things.
I'm gonna stop you there, right? Because I'm gonna recap what you said, but I also want to pick at some of this stuff, right? So
Sure.
I talked about having the right mindset. You talked that the
Mm.
organization has to have a good governance and strong personnel. Because unless you have those things in place, you're gonna encounter the challenges are gonna be hard to overcome, right?
Yeah.
And then we talked about the initial capital.
Mm-hmm.
How let's just how does a small NGO that only has 3 people, an NGO that's only been around for 5 years, get the sufficient capital to start a business arm?
So that's a good question. So what I'll say to you is that I think we need to start focusing on the sites. When you say 5 years, you're still a relatively young NGO.
Mm-hmm.
What I'll say is that you have to look at, are you providing, is the social need that you're looking to fill sufficient enough that can garner support from other entities, right?
Yeah.
I know you have to look at, then looking at what the need you're looking to address, and look at the skills you need to get the financing. And skill doesn't necessarily need to be business. You can engage in a community social impact project that will garner support, and then you can look to see what else can I do, where can I generate capital, what service can I do that generates. It doesn't have to be big. We know of persons who just give lectures for money because that's the skill they have that is linked to their social need, that garners revenue. I think one of the things is sometimes is that don't necessarily look to think that you're so small that you can't even make a big bid for a large project. I think that you need to hone and build these skills. And you better than I know that organizations such as CPDC, Caribbean Developers Coalition, Bango are always providing capacity building projects to build the capacity so that you can engage and you can work with donors. You also have to it takes a bit of savviness of who you're interacting with and who you're partnering with. And then you can, with a little patience, look at where you can move beyond that. Now, the problem is that sometimes our dreams are bigger than the reality of the reality that we are in. And therefore, we have to pace ourselves. And I think that's the best thing. But what I'll say to you, one of the things we do, we always do an annual program budget, but we've gone more into business planning. We've looked at what we need to improve on to do that. We look at how we can diversify where we get our projects, collective skills and services. So those are some things you can do. And even if you're a small NGO, like I said, you can improve your project writing skills, get smaller grants. Get small grants, we got the bigger grants. Then you can look at what skill you've learned, what are you developing, what service you can provide to have more social impact that can garner revenue. It doesn't have to be big. The problem is that we think things have to be big. They don't have to be big. I know there are some, for example, there are examples of NGOs who do selling, who sell here, who sell food. And because the product is good enough, a high quality, they're able to garner revenue just by these small little things and have greater impact.
Okay. So I think what I hear you saying is to start small, understand your limits, understand where you're operating from, understand who you are to avoid mission drift. And then from that, once you understand who you are as an organization and ensuring that you have the right personnel, it's about finding the right connections. Because once again, I'm going to say it, your alignment determines your assignment. So finding the organizations who are willing to partner with you to build your capacity or to enter into this venture with you. And then from there, always ask yourself, what else? So I do grant evaluations and stuff, and one of the things that the committees love to say is that we bring back the same thing as in the nonprofit sector, brings back the same projects repeatedly, and there's no innovation. And listening to you tonight again, I'm hearing that there's no innovation. There's no looking in the cracks to see what else could be done. No looking outside of the box to see what else could be done. Only looking within. And I want to ask, just like, if you could give us one. I mean, I know you gave us examples of doing public speaking or whatever else, but how does one? Because it's not easy to think outside your box. If this is what you know all your life, this is what you're comfortable doing. So if you could give us like one thing that could help us exercise, that could help us think outside of our box to be somewhat innovative with the grants or with the social enterprise. What would that exercise be?
What would that exercise be? Inclusivity and diversity into your support network.
And you know how much I love those words.
the reason is, and this is the again, you have to reflect the change you want to be. The people that you have around you and the people that you attach yourself to allows you to expand your mind, broaden your horizons. So everybody talks about including young people. But it's not just, it can't be just including young people to being tokenistic. You have to listen to what they're saying. So, for example, we've been saying, my young people have been telling me we need to have a clinic which focuses on having younger people, and their parents being involved in general health. So we've taken up that challenge. That is what the young people wanted. We had men. They wanted to have a male space. So that's where we had our male clinic, which we're looking to re-energize it in our new location in a different way. So therefore, it is having that appeal. So the exercise you might need to go on is who do I need to include? Who do I need to partner with? And then
asking who's not at the
people
table.
Might understand that. Pardon?
Maybe the question is who's not at your table? Who are you not taking advice from?
That is part of it. But if you're inclusive enough and inclusive in enough thought, that wouldn't be a question that you can ask yourself. That would be something that one of the people that is around you will tell you.
True. True.
And that's the advantage of having people. But one of the exercises that I have done, I've done a couple of courses, and they've actually asked you to really think about what you can offer, what is out there, what is different. Look around you. Everything doesn't have to be some great, marvelous idea. And then you actually sit down, you go through the business planning process. For some organizations, it is easier than others. So, for example, I have a friend of mine who does there's an organization I work with, not going to call its name, and sensitivity workshops. Because of the type of organization they are, people would be willing to listen to the type of sensitivity workshops that they can offer. There are people who do it, but there are people who are well placed to do it. And sometimes somebody just saying, look at the skill you already have. I've known someone that has done a food truck, and that was not knowing food trucks became popular in Barbados. They were in Trinidad. They did food trucks. Did food trucks 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are small things that you can do. It does not have to be groundbreaking. It doesn't have to be. It just has to be something that you can do. For example, there's a hand in hand. It's okay to say you're selling something, and many businesses fail because they sell a product. But you know what? There's a business that's going to go out there, see the weakness in your business model, and what they're going to do is they're going to scale up the idea. It could be something as simple as scaling up an idea that already exists. Yeah. That was one part of your question. I think it can't remember the second part.
Well, I was asking about what exercise to help somebody think innovative. And you're talking about figuring out you're talking about diversity and inclusion, to have persons speak into the situation to ensure that you think of all areas, and then moving from there to build something small and then allow for the scale up. So what
Yeah.
do you think is the future for social enterprise in the Caribbean? I know Jamaica has the social stock exchange. Um, Barbados is looking at NGO legislation.
Yes. Yes. CPDC and Bango have been looking at ways to really
And the
have
Ministry of Labor on
I mean, the
sorry.
Ministry of Labor, the Ministry of Labor. But what I'll say to you is really, I think, a facilitation of opportunities, because I'm going to say there are a lot of good NGOs who just need the additional help, who already have social entrepreneurship arms, that they just need to leverage them a bit more. I think there's a lot. I think a good assessment, a good reflection of yourself as the NGO, external or otherwise, engaging with a consultant. I mean, give us some way to have a reflect. And we had this process. Where somebody came in, carried and led sessions about what do we change? How do we change what we're doing? What do we need to look at? And one of the greatest changes of impact is adversity. When we started receiving certain cuts, we knew we had to change, because if we don't change, the BFPA might not be here for another 70. And we have to take
Yeah.
some risk. We can't be afraid to take some risk. And we have taken some risk. And that is, for me, what NGOs need to be very wary of. Need to be think of.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say this. We as NGO leaders need to stop being afraid. We as NGOs need to stop being afraid of making decisions. Some decisions are simply that, decisions. We need to stop being afraid, and do what we have to do if we're going to continue to help people. Sorry.
No, I take that. I mean, this season of my life is about not being afraid and taking leaps, starting something new and trying to build. So yes, I understand. I know it's not easy. So when I
It's not
say take
easy.
risk, I could say like I have taken risk as well, and it's not always easy. So would you say that is your final advice you want to give to aspiring social entrepreneurs in the region, or you have one more piece of advice first?
Let me see. What I'm going to say to you, information is capitalize on opportunities and address existing challenges. We have the potential to make significant contributions to our region, to our countries, and the wider world with sustainable with our actions. And we really need to think about how we can be here. If you've been here for a year, how we can be here for next year. I'm always thinking how will BFPA will be here for the next 70. What can I do now that can guarantee that BFPA will be here for the next 70? And that is what I want people to aspire to. How can we be here for the next period? How we can have, and I think if we think about that, rather than, it's easy to say, but I know it's hard because I live it daily. The day-to-day challenges that we experience as NGOs, it's easy to say it's easy to say how are we gonna think about 7 years from now, or even tomorrow, when we have so many challenges day to day. But if we don't do that, there's going to come a point where we're going to say, I've done all that, oh, it's too late. But we have to start as early thinking about these things for the future. And one other thing, I think, which is the biggest fear of social enterprise, what happens when we start doing good? What happens when we start making revenue? My thing is, I don't think people understand the challenges that are out there. There's never going to be enough revenue generated by a social enterprise to deal with a lot of the challenges that I deal with, my organization deals with. So therefore, what people should be asking themselves, are these organizations generating, using their social enterprise and having impact? If the answer is yes, if they're doing it transparently and they're doing it with great accountability, what people should be asking themselves, how can we assist them by our skills, by our finances, so that we can have the continued impact to eliminate some of the challenges which continue to exist in our society? And that is the greatest fear of some. I've heard it. The greatest fear is that we do so well that government, and it is a real fear to have, that you do so well in the past or you do so well in this that government thinks that the government and other funders think that you are that there's no need to
Need for
help
support.
for support, and that is not the case, because some of the support that is given allows you to free up unrestricted funding that can be allow you to be more innovative and be more sustainable. The biggest problem now we are having is restricted, us as NGOs are having, is restricted income. Income that must be trying a particular way. Unrestricted income is really what provides for innovation for NGOs. And that is what social enterprise does. A lot of it provides unrestricted income so that there can be more innovation in NGOs. Like I'm going to say to you, for us, we are open EMR, electronic medical records. If we started, but we could have been, if we had the finances, we could have been one of the first medical centers, first medical country organizations that was fully electronic medical record operational. We're almost there, but it took longer than it should have because of limited finances.
Yeah.
And these are things that would have been innovative if we had had the funding when we wanted it. And these are many things that I think that NGOs can do if they had the funding and be more innovative. And in the past, NGOs have been innovative and government has supported and governments have followed. I want those days to continue. I want those days to return as well, where there's a deep-seated and strong collaboration, not just the BFPA, but with other NGOs to get the results that are needed to have great impact on our society.
Great. So what I'm hearing is that we must have sustainability plans, succession plans, be able to measure our impact. Don't be afraid of taking risk and continue to collaborate with the government and other nonprofits.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much, Anderson, for being here and bringing your insights and passion for social enterprise to us. It's been a valuable conversation. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us today. And remember that together we could create a more sustainable Caribbean. Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
All right, bye, Karen.
Bye.